Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
You're still on to Early Exchange, where the big story lives, and the big story for this segment has to do with the recent visit of Prince Harry and his wife to Nigeria, which has been generating controversies. In fact, interestingly, it has been generating some issues among the royal family. But the question is, what has been the impact of this visit to Nigeria, and what are the underlying issues fueling this kind of crisis within the royal family? We have an in-house guest with us who is passionate about this discussion. We have the privilege of hosting the Jide Taiwo.
Hello, Femi.
Yeah.
Good morning. Great to be here again. I chuckled when you say passionate about it, but we'll take it. How are you doing? How are you doing?
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Great. So once you're around for this kind of conversation, there's always this, excitement.
I cannot help myself. I'm sorry. Can't help myself. Yes.
All right,
yes.
let's look at this visit. They were in Nigeria a few days. That was May 13th. And
Yes.
the visit is over, but the controversies are not over, most importantly from the royal family. But let's start with the impact of this visit to the Nigerian scene. They were here to commission a game meant to rehabilitate servicemen and some people who have served the nation. Now, what would you say has been the impact of this visit? How significant has it been? And then the controversy trailing it, which is why the royal family is reacting to this, because it's been perceived as a royal visit, unlike the status of this set of people. Talk to us about the significance of this visit first.
Right. So there are a number of layers to it. Prince Harry, apart from being a member of the royal family, also served in Her Majesty's army at the time. Spent some time, I think, in Afghanistan, and he did reasonably well, even to the point that members of his family and the British government were of the opinion that he shouldn't be in the line of fire as much as he was. And then for some reason, some newspaper published, the exact location that he was, and they had to pull him out, right? So he's been a veteran. And then in the course of his career, he's met a lot of injured vets, people who have been to the war front, who have lost limbs, who, a little bit of mental issues and all whatnot, as all of us know. So about 10 years ago, he started something called the Invictus Games, which is to celebrate and create kind of like Olympics, for disabled vets. The Olympics have the Paralympics, which is for everybody. Sometimes military personnel also play in the Paralympics. But the Invictus mainly is for people who are served, who are now dealing with this life-changing injury. So that's what he founded 10 years ago. It's the 10th anniversary of that thing this year. It's been in the UK, his home country, before coming to Nigeria. And I think his visit to Nigeria was predicated on the premise that, Nigeria did well in the last Invictus Games. That's where he met the then Minister of Defense and all. So it was Nigeria that invited him over. To just encourage people and make things on. It's not so much of a big deal. It's a popular figure, it's a popular face. So the controversies that have trailed it is something that is hilarious in the first instance, and then exposes the underbelly of certain salient issues, the big R word, which I'm reticent to use, but I think there's a fair bit of racism involved, and then we can look at it. So the impact of this visit is to encourage these soldiers, some of them that met him last year, right, to say, oh, you can be more, you can do better. And I think they had a charity event in Lagos as well. Charity is never a bad thing, right? So whoever disagrees with it, you must have solid reasons why you're disagreeing with it. Personally, I don't think the hula baloo we are hearing from members of the British public and the press, they have an issue that they are dealing with, that Nigeria now happens to be in the line of fire, so to speak.
Talking about they have an issue that they are dealing with and Nigeria happens to be in a line of fire, sounds like this is not basically about Nigeria, but Nigeria happens to be collateral damage in the conversation. Let's take it to how it's been for Prince Harry and his wife Meghan. Now, we understand that the royal family, it seems to be like their preference or in terms of treatment. Now, when it comes to Prince Harry, he's had some issues with the royal family, and when he got married to his wife Meghan, and at some point they pulled away from the royal family, they relocated to the US, and then coming back, it seemed like they've not been so accepted back into the royal family. And these people came to Nigeria for something that a lot of people want to describe as very, very nice to do. For someone who's been on that road before, seeing how veterans and what they go through, set up a game that has done 10 years,
Yes.
and it's giving them something to connect with and something to do after their service year. Now, for charity, you also said no one can be angry with charity. It's a good cause that they've come.
Right.
Looking at the reception that they were given when they came to Nigeria, honored by Nigeria's elite, honored by Nigeria's political class, and also the entertainment industry. Now, what exactly do you think is the main issue here? Is it just about the perception that, oh, it was risky for Harry and Meghan to be in Nigeria? Or it's about the honor that Harry and Meghan were given, which the British royal family doesn't quite agree suits the personality of Harry and Meghan?
Meghan. So I consider myself a fair bit of a royalist. I'm enamored with the British royal family, and all of us who grew up in the 90s grew up on Princess Diana and Prince Charles, and all of the things that happened, and our tragic death in 1998 or 97, I can't remember clearly, I think it was 97. So we consider Harry our cousin, right, in so to speak. But more seriously, if you one of the issues that the British society deals with is a certain style of British racism that is not overt, like you'll find in places like the US, for instance. There are places in the US, the Jim Crow laws, all of these things, whites only, all of what they deal with. It's not like that in the UK. But there's a salient racism that, just on the periphery. They won't tell you that you're not accepted, but they'll show you that you don't measure up, all those things. So it's ridiculous that the British press will point to Nigeria as being unsafe when he was in Abuja and, the consular was in Kaduna, was in all of these places. He was in Lagos at the governor's residence. How is that unsafe? And you would imagine that these British people that were talking about Nigeria as if we were in a war zone, when they have representatives. The man who is currently the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, was the envoy here in Lagos and was always moving around. They were having receptions all over the places. And suddenly, because Prince Harry is visiting, you start to tag Nigeria as being unsafe, meaning that Harry had claimed that he felt unsafe in the UK. That how can you feel unsafe in the UK, where we obviously don't like you, and feel at home in Nigeria? So all of these things come into play, and it's pathetic from that section of the British press. There are certain media outlets that have a thing for Harry and Meghan, and it's ridiculous. I remember when Meghan was pregnant with her baby, and it was reported that she had a craving for avocados. Harmless, right? They found a way to tie it into some conflicts in South America. That, Meghan's preferred fruit, is cause of crisis in South America, all those things like that, So I think the matter got to a head. He didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And I read his book, even if I don't agree with certain things. But the major thing that he said was his father and stepmother always finds a way to undermine him, right? King Charles is being treated for cancer. On the day that Harry had his 10th anniversary for Invictus Games, none of his family members showed up, but his father was 2 miles away having a garden party. So it's all of these things, and then people just can't live down the fact that this is a guy that has made a decision. Let him live with it. You don't have to constantly point it out that he has made a wrong decision by leaving the royal family as a working royal, all of those things. But again, if you have a fundamental disrespect for Nigeria, issues like this are just going to exacerbate it and bring it to the fore. So it's ridiculous to me. One of the things that my father left me is a very nice Rolex watch. You can't wear a Rolex in London right now because you're going to get mugged. There are stabbings all over the place. There was a young 14-year-old who got killed a few weeks ago by some swordsman on the streets of London. And you have the nerve, to come and say Nigeria was unsafe because Prince Harry and Meghan Markle came visiting. It's ridiculous, it's pathetic, and it underscores the need for us as Nigerians, as Africans, to have our own loud megaphones to talk these things down.
All right. Few years ago, the couple in question, Harry and the wife, decided to step out from royal duties. But if you look at the recent visits, I'm happy with the fact that you are a prince. And
Thank you very much.
And I want you to see from that point.
Yes.
Here you have someone who has officially stepped out from royal duties. But if you look at the recent visit, that's the grounds on the part of the royal family. It's been perceived like a royal visit. All the side attractions that should come with royal visit were costed to them in terms of the protocol and whatever. And that's been a concern on the part of the royal family. What do you make of this kind of perception? I mean, you're a prince. There's this saying that even if you claim not to be a prince officially, you can't take away
your priesthood.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If you see a lion in Nairobi Park, or you see a lion in UI Zoo, or you see it on the plains of Namibia in the wild, does it change the fact that it's a lion? Prince Harry is a prince, bottom line. If he's no longer a walking royal, doesn't remove his blue blood, right? So him stepping away from royal duties, according to him, and the royal family has a way of not speaking directly on these issues, but they have surrogates, they have preferred media partners that they seed information to, and those ones amplified. So the royal family themselves have not said XYZ, but they are surrogates who pose themselves as royal commentators, somebody with inside knowledge, come out and make all these grand statements. Even when the Queen Elizabeth was alive, and Meghan Markle made remarks about somebody asking for the color of her child, the statement was that recollections may vary. What does that mean? Somebody said you said something, then say I did not say it. Don't say that recollections vary. So, the fact that this guy still enjoys a certain level of celebrity, and in fairness to him, they've been removed from spotlights. Again, if you read the Daily Mail of the UK, they always find a way to include Harry and Meghan in their reportage. If they don't speak to the press, they are behaving like they're better than us. If they do speak to the press, they are looking for attention. So they can't win. And it's a sad footnote on the British royal family that in 2024, all of these issues still come up. I think we're better than this. I think, things can be seen in a more kind way, so to speak.
All right. Now, it seems this is about Harry and Meghan. How did he manage to make it about Nigeria?
Thank you, my sister. So it's always going to be about Nigeria. Again, if you go to Nigeria's history, we were colonized by the British. They did not want to leave. It's we that we said enough is enough. So those things still remain there. We are members of the Commonwealth. I cannot for the life of me think of what we benefit from being members of the Commonwealth, right? It's not like you are paying less tuition or paying no visa fees. We have all of these things. So for a society that is still ingrained in its old, and if you look at these commentators, they are mostly older white and men and women, right? So I think younger people are a bit more relaxed. But for this old guard, they're still entrenched in how they perceive Nigerians, how they perceive people of a certain ethnicity that is different to them. And this is exactly what's coming to play. Nigeria does not have to be your cannon fodder because you want to fight Prince Harry. If you want to fight Harry, call him by his name. Harry, you are this, and that. But don't now make it a Nigerian problem.
As they say in Nigeria, say it with your full chest.
With their full chest, right? So if that's your issue, say it. But you cannot say all of these negative things about Nigeria. Does that mean that when they go to the US, where they live, they're unsafe? Does that mean that if they travel to South Africa, by the way, Prince William is scheduled to visit South Africa in the coming days, right? One of the commentators that were talking on GB News was saying that, Lagos and Johannesburg are competing as the crime capitals of the continent. I want to hear this same sentiment when Prince William visits Johannesburg, right? And we say all of these things in jest, but like I say, things like crime, they are not specific and peculiar to Africa. It's an English word. It means that you have it there. You have all of these pockets of violence, of crime, of drug use in these places. But you now make it into a fundamental flaw in the Nigerian person. I don't agree with it. And like I said, I hope that we can use our own platforms to tell our stories. You know, they had a great time when they were here. They spoke to wives of military officials, you know, had timeouts at a rugby, I think a polo match or something. These are not bad things now. If Lagos was crime riddled, as they say, you can play polo, you can play rugby, you can take a boat out and have a spin. Come on now, you know.
All right, let's talk about the role of the media in all this.
Yes.
Let's start with the international media or the international press, which created some perceptions which most Nigerians are not comfortable. In fact, let me say outrightly, they are far from the truth.
Yes.
Now, where's the missing link? You know, talking about the role of the local media, which is part of why we're having this conversation. And then, did the local media get it right? You know, before the visit and even during the visit, because you will have expected that if the international media is putting this narrative, creating the perception, the local media should also be in position to correct this. Was there a missing link there?
Is there a missing link as much as lack of deliberate narrative spinning? We are comfortable, oh, it's us now. Yeah, let's just show them we are nice people. But these things are not random. I give the example of Hollywood, for instance. Everything that we know about America is because we watch it in films, right? There's an Eddie Murphy movie coming out soon, you know, that's a remake of one of his old movies, Beverly Hills Cop. I remember watching that as a 6-year-old, right? And I thought, what I thought America would be was shaped by what I saw in that film. Do we do that in Nigeria? Not so much, right? We are comfortable. And, you know, although I mean, I'm a media practitioner myself, but I'm not a fan of celebrity. I'm not, you know, yeah, I like you from afar. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to take selfies with you. You know, my work is to tell stories and put out the right narratives there. So a lot of media practitioners that were part of that visit, I think, in my opinion, were content to do Instagram and Snapchats and pepper their friends. Oh yeah, I'm in this exclusive dinner with Prince Harry and Meghan. It doesn't end there. What's the spin that you're putting on it? Yes, and spin is not necessarily a bad thing. It's saying that we understand the negatives, but we choose to focus on the positives. So I think that was a missing link. I think that's what it is, that we didn't have a deliberate media plan to use this visit to promote Nigerian values, Nigerian culture, Nigerian tradition, and we just left it, you know, to chance.
All right, there's a video. We're going to play the video of the commentary about Prince Harry and his wife Meghan's visit to Nigeria. The commentary was done by the British media, and then a guest in the studio will respond to that after we watch the video.
And I'll tell you this, you'll know this, Michael, you've been on enough royal tours. There's no way our royal family would set foot in Nigeria, a country where female mutilation, genital mutilation is rife, where women's rights basically don't exist, where hundreds of kids are regularly kidnapped by extremist Islamic groups. This is not a country that should be endorsed by anyone, certainly not our royal family. And these two neophytes, they're naive in what they're doing. They're making this country look good when it doesn't deserve it.
I couldn't tell you the number of royal tours I've been on, and what you say is absolutely right. You know, Nigeria, the Foreign Office and the American State Department both say it's a dangerous destination. You must not go there. It vies with Johannesburg in South Africa to be the murder capital of the continent. And you and I know that in that country, there's industrial scale boiler rooms of people who are ripping off people around the world, internet fraud, wholesale internet fraud, defrauding old ladies, stealing identities, and none of that is ever prosecuted. Now, as we know, there he is on his polo pony playing in favor of one of his African charities. As we know, Prince Harry came back and said this country was not safe enough for him. He took his father's government government to court over it. Eventually, a judge slapped him down and said he couldn't have a permission to appeal. Otherwise, he would have appealed. Now, he's gone to that country there where it's an extremely dangerous place. He had, admittedly, 4 burly bodyguards with him, but how he can maintain that the level of armed protection for him when he's in this country, and when we saw him here last week, he had very, very adequate protection.
There you have it. Those are the things that were said about Nigeria. And I'm going to ask first. One of them was saying that Prince Harry had to come to Nigeria with 4 bodyguards. Now, for the picture that is painted of Nigeria as very unsafe, what would 4 bodyguards do if really Nigeria is that unsafe?
So it's beyond the realm of ridiculous what we just watched. A slight proviso. GB News was started to be the British version of Fox News that panders to, they call it the conservative, but I think that is a euphemism for racism, to be honest. If you watch Fox News, you are going to hear the sentiments that are peculiar to a demographic. People who are white, you know, who have certain feelings towards people of other races. That's what GB News was started to do. So I'm not surprised at the tone of their conversation. I'm amused at how intensely they've expressed it. These neophytes, they are naive.
So
like,
who are
what are you
neophytes?
really mad about?
Prince Harry, that is over 30, and Meghan?
Right. So Meghan has been a Hollywood star for 20 years. Right. Harry is 40 years old this year.
So a 40-year-old
yes,
is described as a neophyte.
I mean, the beautiful thing about the English language is that you can use certain words to mean so many other things. I guarantee you, neophytes was not necessarily what you wanted to say. I think you wanted to use another word that will have got them sanctioned by Ofcom, and it won't be the first time for GB News. But beyond that, right, so he had 4 bodyguards. He's traveling with his wife. Are you saying that a 2-person security personnel is bad? If it was still a working royal, the British High Commission will have had to provide their agents. Will they have the same opinion at that time? I think all of this is, you know, the saying, call a dog a bad name just to hang it. That's what we're seeing play. Unfortunately for them, Nigerians are not known to be shy. So we have not just swallowed this their narrative, hook, line, and sinker. We are not taking it, you know. And it's funny that one of the videos that went viral, that Meghan Markle was slightly dancing to a Nigerian song, and just by chance, I think the DJ knew what he was saying. The song that was playing on that was a Fuji song that spoke directly to somebody having issues with her husband's family, and that's what they were playing. So you can't use us as a pawn in whatever games that you are playing with this Harry of a man, especially when, you know, and this guy has been pretty vocal about his challenges. His mother was chased down by paparazzi, and that's what he doesn't want for himself. Why is that a bad thing, you know?
All right, the conversation is getting interesting, but we'll go on a short breakdown. When we return, the conversation will get bigger. We still have Jide Taiwo here with us.
Come to Lagos, why wouldn't you use some of the greatest spice in the whole world? English dishes. It's a good English dish, but it's made even better by soya. And they're the fireworks. But hey, but yes, it was. I've been totally inspired by the food of Lagos and of Nigeria. That's what you do. You take all these things and you go home and you spread the gospel about how wonderful it is here, because it really is. You know, it's a great place. So, and everyone is so cool here. So thank you for having me.
All right, it's the Early Exchange, and you've listened to that. Still talking about the controversy trailing the recent visit of Prince Harry and the wife, and we still have our in-house guest here with us, Jide Taiwo.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right, now, so the video that we just watched was Tom Packerbose, who is a chef and food critic, and is also the son of Queen Camilla. Now, he visited Nigeria just about a week or a little over a week before Prince Harry and the wife Meghan visited Nigeria. But what he said, because he made a dish, it was suya potato cottage pie. Now, he mentioned that the potato cottage pie was made for him by his mom, often as comfort food while he was growing up. And then when he came to Nigeria, he tasted Nigerian suya. He was blown away. He had to recreate that dish by adding the suya spice. And he was so overwhelmed with how loving Nigerians were and gave what can be described as an endorsement of not just the suya spice, but of Lagos. And this is someone from the UK who had visited just a little over a week before Prince Harry.
Yeah.
Looking at the two opinions, one by Tom Packables and the other by the commentators at the GB TV, talking about Nigeria, does it look like something is missing here? They've been in Nigeria before. If those who've been in Nigeria are saying this, I doubt they've ever been in Nigeria saying something else. You talked about that exposing the underbelly of a lot of things.
Yes.
What does it say about that? Media is supposed to be about the truth.
And then, the truth, as they say, is subjective. There's no one universal truth. But you're absolutely correct. Tom Parker Bowles, who has made a name for himself outside of his family, even before his mother became Prince Charles, now King Charles' official wife and queen, the Parker Bowles family is, aristocratic to some extent, but he's left all of that to build a thriving career for himself. And it's just ridiculous that on one extreme, you have somebody that is directly related to the current queen, right, visiting as himself, having a good time, mixing with people, stayed here for about 3 days, and there was nary a peep. Not one word was said about his safety. And then somebody who came at the behest of our Ministry of Defense. We are now making all of this noise about Nigeria being unsafe. I think, I segue a little bit. For some of us that have read the Daily Mail extensively, the presentations of white football players, for instance, are clearly different from black players. So you find a Raheem Sterling who buys his mother a house. They find a way to make it crime related. Oh, Raheem Sterling, who, by the way, has a tattoo on his leg, wears a lot of bling bling, bought a house for his mother. And then a white guy, goes on a drinking binge, and they call him fun loving. So you see all these pockets of racism, of intolerance, of deliberate misrepresentation, just to push an agenda. So the agenda now is that there's nothing that Harry and Meghan can do. Matter of fact, there was a Piers Morgan who, by all means, is an accomplished journalist, right, who also had issues of phone hacking when he was editor of, I think, News of the World, right, wrote a scathing piece after Harry visited the UK and he didn't get to meet with his father. Piers Morgan said it's like King Charles would rather eat corrugated roofs than meet with his son. And it's shocking to me that how can you have this strong opinion about somebody that has done nothing to, maybe he did something to, because he said Meghan Markle used to be his friend and she wasn't his friend anymore. And he became a sworn enemy. So you see all of these things that no matter what they do, they're never going to be in the right. On the flip side, no matter what Nigeria does, because of our boisterousness, we are loud, we are happy, we are never going to be proper in their eyes until we are towing a certain line, we are shy, we are differential. That's what they want to see us. Unfortunately for them, the Nigerian spirit cannot be restrained. So there's 200 million of us. They have to deal with it one way or another.
All right, interesting. Let's still talk about the role of the media, because the media is a game of perception. If I say a word where make-believe becomes the other. And now there's this perception from the international media. Now, let's look at the impact of that on our nation. It bothers me sometimes where you need to portray a picture of an African child.
Yes.
Then you see an image of someone who's malnourished.
Yes.
When you have an handsome man like you won't see that.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes.
That kind of image. But the question is, what should be the role of the local media and what is the lesson for us in telling our story? And then how do we maximize an opportunity of a visit like this to also put out our narrative and tell our story?
nobody's coming to save us, right? That much is clear. There's no matter how we want to play good politics or play the Saints game, there's a certain way that they see us, they perceive us. And you're right, perception is reality. Is what you see with your eyes that you feel, right? So that that thing is there. That schism is there already. That prejudice is there already. It now behooves us, to do well for ourselves, knowing how we want to play in the world. The success of Afrobeats is not because the world was ready for it. It was because they just couldn't resist it. They hated it for as long as they could, and now they don't have choice. Everybody, Ed Sheeran is making Afrobeat songs all over the place, right? So that is there. The role of the media is shaping narratives, putting it out there. We live in a modern world that we don't need to rely on state-run broadcast facilities to put our words in there. Even things as simple as SEOs, right, is what you put on the internet that all the search engines, all these AI, that's what they pull from. So if us as Nigerian media, yes, we have challenges, but what country doesn't have? If we continue putting out negative stories and narratives about ourselves, that's what the rest of the world is going to see us as. I remember during the tenure of President Obasanjo, he put a ban on a certain type of religious programming that the miracles were, they're like action film, right? I think where we are now, what we used to put in Nollywood, life has moved on from that, right? There are many more stories that need to be told. We have to tell it. Nobody's going to do it for us. The lesson is that if you live, there's a saying in Yoruba that it's how you carry your calabash that other people are going to carry it. It's how you see yourself that the world that already does not like you, is how you present yourself that are going to see you and receive you as. Yes, we are going to have pockets of intolerant people like the folks at GB News. I'm sorry, I'm typically very friendly towards media outlets, but GB News in particular, you should see the kind of contents that they push in that part of the world. You won't see this kind of vitriol on a BBC or Sky, for example. Theirs is still more toned down. But GB News, Daily Mail, The Sun, other tabloids like that, they are visceral in their vitriol. It's not, we can talk our own too now, right? Should I talk about all of my cousins that have been robbed in London or all of the things that are happening, But for us in Nigeria as media practitioners, we must carry it as our cause, right? To ensure that we put the right stories into the world and then we insist on hearing it. There's a lady called Dr. Shola Shogbamu, I think, who is a British Nigerian commentator. And you know that thing, fire for fire, that Nigeria is known for. She gives it to them all of the time. We need to seed our voices to have the right conversations, and that can only be done when we ourselves, we are right in our head, our psyche is on point, and we are deliberate in what we need to do.
All right, so now that it's been said about Nigeria in the media, very horrible things that are not true. Some of the things that were said, women's rights in Nigeria are not respected. That was the implication of what they said. Talked about internet fraud, which is not peculiar to Nigeria, and a lot of things. Now, the thing is, how can people use the media to say all of those horrible things about a nation? Should there be a response from the Nigerian government to that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think government should play these games because they might say whatever they want to say, but the guys at the High Commission, they deal with us differently. The people that need us to pay visa fees, which I think is a racket. I apply for a visa, you don't give me the visa, but I can't have my application fee back. That's insane to me. You see them needing us to pay school fees. A lot of Nigerians who are using the school route to travel abroad pay a ton, literally, in fees. They need that pipeline to keep coming. As a matter of fact, the current Prime Minister has been accused of damaging the British economy because they're putting restrictions on people who want to come with their dependents through either the study route or the work route. These are things that they enjoy from us now. If you want to move to the UK now, after you pay all these your fees, you're still going to pay £1,000 in NHS surcharge. They need that pipeline. We are ready to give it. So there's no need for our government to engage them. However, what our government needs to do is to enable voices, tastemakers, influencers to put these right conversations in places that they are going to be heard. I expect, I'll give you an example, and it's Governor Sanwo-Olu of Lagos presented Harry with a figurine of an Eyo. Eyo is a Lagos, masquerade that is, very iconic. So there's this company that makes replicas of these things. I can tell in the last 1 week, that company has received a lot of inquiries from people who want to buy these things. These are things that we can be doing. When I was younger, my parents used to travel. We used to collect snow globes, small globes with snow inside of them, and figurines and replicas of cities, from across the world. We need to start doing that. I remember again, Yankari Games Reserve. I didn't even know that was Nigeria, but there were T-shirts that my uncle used to bring back from visiting Yankari Games Reserve. That's the kind of soft power that government needs to encourage. When we make film, ensure that we get rebates. When we make music, ensure that it's in the right places, the right music. Because I was listening to one gentleman just as I was coming out. Anyway, so our government does not need to respond to talking heads on media outlets, but our government needs to enable us, empower us to put the right narratives out.
All right. It seems to me that when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. In this case, narrative in Nigeria, we don't have to suffer for it.
No, we don't.
Which is why we're having this conversation. Now, let's step away from this and look at the crisis in the royal family. The perception as regards the decision made by Harry and the wife, it seems to me that the king is yet to come to terms with this. And I want you to put yourself in his position.
In the king or in the prince?
No. Okay, both sides. Let's look at both sides. You are a prince. Imagine your father has invested in you time, energy, resources, hoping that one day you're going to be the next king, and at a point you just decide you're stepping from your royal duties, and the future your father has painted is looking like it's not going to be a reality. How do you expect him to accept that reality? It's becoming a tough one for the king, isn't it?
So the goodwill that the late Queen Elizabeth enjoyed, I think, was huge. That even in our lifetime, Prince, now King Charles, struggled to thrive, right, under our shadow. And then he had his own shortcomings. The woman that is his queen now was through a lot of scandal. She was married. He was married. In fact, the late Princess Diana said, I found out that there were 3 people in my marriage. It was this same Queen Camilla. That was a third party in the marriage. It was not a secret. There was a certain phone call of his that leaked where he was saying really explicit things to her. She was in her husband's house when he was saying these things to her over the phone. It got leaked. It was a terrible time, but nothing changed, right? Eventually, his ex-wife died, and then he could marry somebody else that he actually wanted. But Harry's grouse was that my father defied everybody to marry who he wanted to be. The least I expect from him is support, right? So them stepping away from royal duties, I think, was the last resort, because they said they reached out for help. As a matter of fact, Meghan Markle was the one sustaining their young family because Harry had a meager allowance. Now, the difference is that he's never going to be king, right? There's a heir, there's a spare. Here's the spare. And he wrote it in his book that the reason he was given birth to was to be spare parts supplier for his brother, who is next in line now. And then the British hierarchy is so funny that the children of the prince come before his siblings. So Harry is 5th in line. There's William's 3 kids before Harry. So Harry is never going to become king. All he can do is to have a semblance of normalcy. Now, the British aristocracy have this stiff upper lip thing that they believe in. If you are dying, don't say it out. It's better for you to die than to say, help me, I'm dying. But for how long? It's 2024. There's also a growing community of Brits who don't believe in a monarchy. In fact, I think Prince William might be the last king of England, knock on wood, right? because there's calls for a republic kind of thing. All other countries in Europe, except for Spain, I think, all of them have presidents and prime ministers and democracies, as opposed to a monarchy that are largely ceremonial. I was reading up on King Charles yesterday. The royal family owns the whole of Regent Street in London, one of the most expensive pieces of real estate anywhere in the world, right? So there are people that are like, wait a minute, why are you superior to me? We are both human beings. We are both men. We are not superior, even though you're a king. So Charles himself has to deal with this crisis of unpopularity, which I think is the last 3 years has softened somewhat. But in terms of sustaining the love people have for the British royal family, they have to soften on certain things. If your son is in town, no matter how estranged, the relationship is, I think, and this is me pulling myself back as a father and as a son, if a relationship is estranged between father and son, I don't think the father can be angry with the son forever. Sometimes you need to pull the son in and say, you are being stupid, but I love you still. You are my son, and we're going to fix it. I don't think King Charles has been seen to do that, especially when you have events on the same day as your son, and then the other son that you are cool with, you pass on this guy's battalion, pass it off to him because he's no longer a working royal. It's just a very fine mess that they found themselves. And, if they want to sustain the popularity of the British royal family across the world, they've got to fix these things. Especially because Harry is Princess Diana's child. Princess Diana is, loved by everybody. These things have to be fixed.
All right, in fixing this, it's not up to Nigeria how the British family handle their relationship, but it is up to Nigerians how they react over this. Online, on social media, there have been various comments around this, and Nigerians have showed a displeasure at the commentary. But going forward, more persons from the UK, even maybe from the royal family or close to the royal family, may visit Nigeria. The kind of hospitality that was given to Prince Harry and Meghan, which Nigerians are known for, do you think Nigerians will begin to adjust because it seems like their hospitality is not valued?
So the thing about Nigerians is we are very forgiving. That could be right, that could be wrong. I think there are certain grouses that we should hold on to forever. But as a people, we are not that kind. I mean, we are not that sort of people. We are kind, we are warm, we are welcoming. Otherwise, the British royal family should have no business coming to Nigeria, given their history of colonialism in Nigeria anyway. But we are, we open our arms, we receive people. I think it speaks more to us, than it does for them. They are not going to change who we are. I suspect that the reception might not be as organic if King Charles or Prince William were to visit, but we have very good diplomatic relationships with the UK, with the UK High Commission. So I suspect there will be a certain level of activity, maybe not as organic as we've seen with Prince Harry, but we are not going to hold placard and chase them out. Let them come and experience Nigeria for themselves. It's a wonderful place. Everybody that's been here wants to come back. Film stars, sports stars, musicians, politicians, academics, anybody that visits Nigeria, in spite of all these our problems, that is not peculiar to us, so that everybody else in the world, they are carrying their own career in their pockets, right? These things are not peculiar to us, but it's incumbent upon us that we phrase it properly, we amplify the positives and work on the negatives.
I like the fact that the visit has succeeded in refuting the claim that Nigeria is unsafe.
Yes.
And that's the good narrative about this. And we just have to leave this conversation here. Let's see how it goes. And then I hope Nigeria, or as a nation, will be able to maximize advantages, opportunities inherent in this kind of visits. And then the local media, we can also do better. I must appreciate you for your time.
Oh, thanks. Always a pleasure.
Permit me to say Prince.
Not yet. It's just due time for now. I'm still upcoming.
Okay. All right. I'd like to say a few things before we wrap up the show. Now, when someone said, I'm talking about one of the commentators saying that Nigeria is unsafe, I'd like to remind him that this is the same Nigeria, Lagos particularly, where Mark Zuckerberg came, and he was like a very free man. I saw Tom Parker Bowles in Nigeria at the GT Cold Food Festival. He was walking about as a free person. He didn't need bodyguards. He was just so free, and he enjoyed Nigeria. I couldn't hide that in an exclusive interview that SOUQ News had with him, he had to show all of that. And I'm going to toe the line of Chimamanda Adichie, the writer. You know, in one interview that she had with a French interviewer, Caroline Berry, and then she asked Chimamanda, do they have bookshops in Nigeria? Do you know what her response was? She said, you know, that reflects poorly on you. Because if you think that in modern day time, they would have bookshop in a country that has produced one of the greatest writers of our time. So I'm going to say to those two gentlemen, you may have said all of these things about Nigeria that you perhaps have not been to. For whatever reason, maybe some prejudice, but you shouldn't understand that prejudice is blinding. We do hope that when you get to watch today's show, you will receive some light because all the things that you said about Nigeria without any proof reflect poorly on you. And so from one media station to another, we advise that we pursue truth. It will help the world, because at the end of the day, before our Creator, we are all just one. It doesn't matter whether you're black or whether you're white. And as Lucky Dubé, the singer, will say, it doesn't matter whether you're black or you're white. It's not about the color. It should be about love. It should be about us as human beings. Racism will do no one no good. I'm Blessing Eiche, and this is a wrap for the week's edition on Early Exchange. It'll be another time, 8 a.m. Monday, West African time. Enjoy your week and stay with SOUQ News.
All right, it's also important that we know we need to write our story. Nobody can write our story better than the way we will do. And that's why it's important for every African, every Nigeria to take on this challenge of telling the narrative that Africa is not just about negativity. We have element of positivity and opportunities inherent in Africa. But for the Western world or any other part of the world to see these stories, we need to take up this responsibility of telling our story the way it ought to be. And that's what we'll do on Early Exchange, which is going to return on Monday. Thanks for watching. I am Femi Ayodele. Enjoy your weekend.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.